This is the year 2022, or as I personally like to call it, the year 2020 Part 3. Now, obviously this is a new channel. Today we are going to be reviewing the Welcome to Raccoon City, the latest entry into the Resident Evil franchise. Guys, to be honest with you, I did spend money to rent this film, and I will say this, it's probably not something you want to be doing. So we're going to start off with the characters. Now obviously the characters, in Resident Evil there is a lot of iconic and, standout characters. And this film does have the, the kind of top flight characters. You've got Claire and Chris Redfield, Leon S. Kennedy, Jill Valentine, Albert Wesker and William Birkin. And obviously, people, if you've ever played Resident Evil, watched Resident Evil, you kind of got a bond with these characters. You either love them or you hate them, but either way, you know who they are. Unfortunately, whoever was in charge of the character selection for, actors to who they're going to play, kind of dropped the ball on this one because some of the characters don't match the actors, which was a bit of a drop for the Resident Evil franchise. Especially with the fact that, the Resident Evil was built on the character progression and everything else. You got to love your characters. You always enjoyed the characters. But now, obviously, with this, what they've done is they've kind of dropped the ball, and the character development is missing in this film as well, because there's not as much, okay, for example, you start off Leon Kennedy, you see him and he's a bit of a whingy, kind of wimpy guy, that's really kind of soft and everything. And then by the end of the film, he gets to that kind of wisecracking, hard, kind of battle-hardened soldier. And unfortunately, by the time it gets to the end of the film, you're really not interested in him. You know what I mean? He's just one of those characters that you're like, right, okay, well, he's here, he's there, do you know what I mean? Don't really care. If he died, it really wouldn't bother anyone, and that's a bit of a problem, especially with Leon Kennedy being one of the loved characters from the franchise. Claire and Chris Redfield, again, the same. There's not really much kind of dynamic between the two of them. Albert Wesker and Jill Valentine, they have this wee kind of romance going, which is all fairness, it's quite good. But again, it doesn't really kind of evolve anywhere, and that just kind of moves on for there. William Birkin, as everybody knows, is one of the kind of scientists, and you kind of get to see him with his family, but again, there's no insight to if he was a good guy, a bad guy. It was very, very rushed. Now we're going to talk a bit about the storyline. We've done the characters, let's talk a bit about the storyline. In my personal opinion, the storyline was okay, but in a multi-platform franchise such as Resident Evil, with games, comics, films, anime, toys, the lot, they basically try to rush Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 games, cram them in together and rush it through production. And the time scope of the film is an hour and 47 minutes. And this, in personal opinion, is just kind of drops the ball, because you're trying to cram so much information in that you're missing the fundamental points that made Resident Evil Resident Evil. The horror genre, it completely reimaginated the zombie franchise, been put in games, comic, films, whatever. And this time they just seem to have dropped the ball that much that there is a lot of plot holes and missed opportunities that they really could have kind of expanded on if they had just really kind of taken out wee bits here and there and added bits for, a more of an explanation. So for people who have never seen a Resident Evil film before, played the games, read the comics, even watched an anime or whatever, if they've been hiding under a rock for the last 10, 15, 20 years, this is kind of one of the points where they really did drop the ball. Now obviously, with that said and done, the director, obviously a director, if he writes a script and does the film, you can imagine that he has this vision for what he wants to bring to the big screen. And to be totally honest with you, that does work sometimes, right? There is sometimes it works absolutely fantastic, but on this occasion it really doesn't. Now the director and writer was a guy called Johannes Roberts. In my personal opinion, I don't think he's ever actually watched a Resident Evil film or played any of the games. I don't even think he's ever actually seen a really good horror film, because if you check out his IMDb link, a lot of his films are really low scoring, They're 1.5, 2.5, kind of upwards. Now a lot of people are probably sitting there thinking, well, who is Johannes Roberts? Basically, he was a guy behind the film 47 Metres Down and 47 Metres Down Uncaged. The rest of these films, to be honest with you, I'd never heard of them, and I've never watched them, and by looking at the scores, I probably never will watch them either. Not for any majorly bad thing, it was just more to do with the fact that after seeing this, which is, this franchise should have been fantastic, it just didn't really kind of boil home for me, and obviously that's a problem. So before we get into the bad things, let's talk about the locations in Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Now, one of the most iconic locations in any Resident Evil game, the Spencer Mansion, is definitely up there with the greats. Now, I'm also going to have a couple of picky points here, but, we do see the Raccoon Police Department, Again, it's an iconic location. If you ever played the games, you enjoy going there, exploring. There was a Raccoon orphanage. This is where the film actually starts out. You know, you have a bit of a backstory. You know, these locations should have really saved this film, made it big and bulky, but it just, there was a lot of points in it that just kind of broke away. Now, like I said, obviously it broke away, right? But what I'm trying to point out here is the fact that with the plot holes and the missing descriptions and understanding for the film, whoever is just starting out in the Resident Evil franchise, you know, they're not going to understand what we as, you know, huge fans already know. Now, obviously one of the major points was, and this is a massive pick-up point for me, there is a scene where Chris Redfield is in the mansion. He has been attacked by a small horde of zombies. The partner he is with at the time also gets attacked, but unfortunately his partner, you know, gets killed by the zombies, right? Okay, that's just how it works in a zombie film. And Chris is, you know, shouting for help, and, you know, it cuts to his partner being attacked and killed by these zombies, and then it cuts back to Chris, who's managed to break free and run away. Now, obviously, with that said and done, you know, you kind of go, well, how did he get away when he was pinned against a wall? Now, obviously, at that point, you know, he does pull out his MP5, you see him running through the halls, shooting, killing zombies, and now on his MP5 he has a flashlight attachment, basically box standard attachment for any, you know, MP5. You've seen them in the games, you've seen them in the films, you've seen them in any other game. Now, obviously, what happens here is it gets knocked out of his hand and the flashlight goes out. Now he's obviously killing him with his knife, and he's on the floor, and he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a Zippo, and he flicks the Zippo on, and he looks about, trying to see if he can see it, and he sees what he thinks is his partner, one of the partners that he was sent into the mansion to find. And you know, the guy turns around and he's a zombie. The lighter goes out, he flicks the lighter back on, and the zombie's coming closer. The lighter goes out again, he flicks the lighter on, and the zombie's gone. But then it pops up behind him and attacks him. Obviously at this point Jill Valentine comes in and saves him, right? Okay, here's my problem with this. If you have, you know, an MP5 with flashlight attachment, these things are built to take a knock. And okay, let's say hypothetically you dropped it and it did knock out. Most officers, most STARS team members, which this is what they're trying to portray here, is they'll have a tactical flashlight on them. So why not reach into your utility belt, whatever, and have a quick flick on of that, instead of reaching into your pocket to then, you know, pull out a Zippo. Now, with a Zippo said and done as well, the Zippo is quite an iconic lighter in itself, because, you know, these things can take, you know, a good gust of wind, and you can use these outside, inside. But at this point in time, this scene in the film, he's actually inside the Spencer mansion, but yet it keeps blowing out. Now, obviously, you're probably thinking, well, that's just a bit nitpicking, it is just a film. Again, it's wee things like this that actually kind of pulled it all away. Now, obviously, that is just a few plot hole points. That was kind of the main ones for me, that ones that kind of pushed me right off the edge. And we're going to leave that alone now, right? We're going to start talking about the main idea behind the zombies. Now, obviously, at the start of the film, you do see a small boy, and then you see his mother, and they've lost her hair, and you can see there's slight deterioration to the skin, and obviously, you know, you're like, right, okay, they've got an infection, or they have some kind of an illness that makes them look like this. Now, obviously, as the film goes on, you then get to the Raccoon Police Department, and they've got the main gate shut, and there are all these zombies, infected, we'll call them, right? They're not zombies, they're infected people. They're turning up, and you know, they're kind of just looking and trying to get through the gate, and some of them acting like zombies, as you came to know and love a zombie, and you've got other ones who are just, you know, there's one scene where the woman puts her hand into her hair and pulls her hair away, and she kind of looks at it as if, you know, what's happening, and then she goes back to being a zombie again. Now, obviously, with my concept of zombies in any Resident Evil film or any zombie film, it kind of goes to show that zombies don't have memory, right? They start to degenerate, they're dead, everything else. And okay, this infection has spread, but it's not killed them off yet. So it's still kind of weird how they have them, you know, acting like zombies, but they're realising things are wrong, but then they go back to being, it's a plot hole that I can't work on, right? I just can't get it. They really messed this up. Now, obviously, in the Spencer mansion, you do get to see the zombies. Some of them are, you know, zombified, as we've came to know and love. You know, they look like zombies, they act like zombies. They don't, you know, I don't know if this is because they've been attacked or what happens. But the basic concept is you've got one set of infected, one set of zombies, and you're kind of like, right, okay, so what's what? Because obviously, like I said, they are at the gate, they're pushing through, and in, you know, part of the film, they do actually manage to break open the gate and push their way through. It was okay. They do then smash open a glass door, and by this point in time, you're still looking at them, and they're still got their kind of human looks about them, but they have this animalistic kind of feel to them, or look to them. Now, with that, we're going to talk about the CGI. Now, this film is set in 30th of September 1998, and so we're kind of looking at CGI from the 90s. Now, if you're an old git like me and you have pretty much grown up with this kind of CGI, you kind of tend to have this nostalgic love for it. Obviously, with a lot of people that kind of who are new to this kind of CGI, they're kind of thinking that's just lazy on the production team. And it did give us a giggle, do you know what I mean? Thinking, oh my god, that's how bad CGI used to be. I will say this though, in the 21st century, we probably shouldn't be seeing CGI like that in any film. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're going for, a franchise like this, you really want to be pushing, you know what I mean, pushing the CGI out, because not everybody's going to understand why the CGI was that bad. Now, obviously, we have covered, the characters, the locations, the zombies, and personally, what else can go wrong with this film? And I will be honest, there's nothing else goes wrong with the film, but nothing gets better with it. Now, I have put in the trailer in the background, you will see Resident Evil 2002 and probably Resident Evil Apocalypse on there. And this is just to give you a kind of comparison of what the actual whole film, what the trailers are like and what the kind of film's like. You'll get a kind of an idea. With this all said and done, guys, with Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, I'm going to give this a measly 4.5 out of 10. By all matter of means, this is generous in my opinion. But as always, guys, thank you very much for listening and watching. If you liked it, please hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.